Yo soy Xavier Garza. I'm an artist, author, and illustrator, and this is Una Plática. As far as who inspired me to become an artist, it was a combination of things. One of the things is that I grew up reading comic books, and that was one of the big influences on me. I learned how to draw by trying to draw the same images that I saw in comic books and all that I saw on television. And eventually, over time, that developed to where I was exposed to other artists, like Chicano artists like Cesar Martinez, Carmen Lomas Garza, Luis Jimenez. I mean, those three were really big influences on my work. I mean, I love the work of Carmen Lomas Garza because she's a storyteller, and her art tells a story. I love the work of Cesar Martinez with his Bato Pachuco Ruca series, where it shows all those facial portraits. So those two are probably two of the big influences on everything that I do. I do consider myself a Chicano artist in the sense that, to me, the word Chicano doesn't just mean like political art. To me, it includes every aspect of our lives, from the food that we eat, to the traditions that we celebrate, to our families, to our generation after generation, stories that are handed down from one person to another. To me, all these things are part of what the word Chicano means. And in that broad sense, yeah, I do consider myself to be a Chicano artist. I make art because at my core, and I tell people this when they ask me, I tell them I'm a storyteller. From the books that I write, from the stories that I tell, to the images that I create, they're all meant to tell a story. And the story that I tell is the experience that have had throughout my life. From parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, tias, tios, all these different components make me who I am. And so when I do my art, I focus a lot on, some people would call it border life, because I grew up along the border, and I tell people, I compare it to when you would go out before cable. I tell people we had an antenna, and that antenna was how we saw television. And if you turned it to one side, you saw all the American stations you could catch at that time. Then you switched it towards Mexico, and you caught some of the Mexican stations that we could catch at the time that were from Mexico. And that's what we do. I tell people, they call it code switching, and I compare when people talk, que dicen, oye, ma, voy para la tienda, you want me to bring you something? And you don't even skip a beat when you say it. It's just so natural. And when it comes to my art, I include all those things in there. From my experiences growing up as American to my experiences of growing up Mexican-American in the U.S., which is luchadores, cucuys, all these things are part of the work that I do. I believe that organizations like Centro Cultural Aztlán are vital to any community. One, it brings the community together. It gives artists, whether they be musicians, whether they be poets, whether they be painters, whether they be sculptors, whatever field of arts they follow, it gives them a venue. It gives them a place to show their work, show what they do, show the skills that they possess, and share it with the community. And the community gives them a place to go where they can be exposed to all these different aspects of the arts. And I remember I was part of Gallista a few years back, and I remember telling people, they will not feel just how important they will not know how important this place was till it is no longer there. Well, after a while, Joe Lopez retired, and Gallista is no longer there, and the community felt the loss. And that's why, like Centro Aztlán, it's very important. It's a place for people to come together, for the arts to come together, and we count our blessings that it's there, because other places don't have communities, don't have centers like Centro Cultural Aztlán. Well, what I would like to, the impact I would like my art to have is this. I tell people I'm a storyteller. Like, I write books, and I'm fortunate enough that I'm allowed to illustrate my own books. And what I tell people is, the best part, they asked me one time, what's the best part of writing a book? And I tell them the best part of writing a book is that you're writing something, you're creating something that's going to outlive you. Same goes for a painting or a song. It's going to outlive you. 10, 20, 30, 40 years, the creator could be gone. But that book, for example, that's still going to be in a shelf somewhere. Some kid's going to pick it up, some kid's going to read it, and hopefully your story inspires them to write their own story. And that's kind of like what you want. You want to, inspire other people to say, you know what? I like his story or her story. But you know what? His story or her story, it's not that different from the experiences that I've had. And if he or she can write a book, if they can do a painting, if they can write a song, well, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it too. Because I had the same experience that they did. And from there, it just grows and it grows. And you kind of like, we want to pass it on. You want to keep it going on and on. Advice I would give to any artist that's just thinking of going professional, so to speak, is number one is learn all you can. And I always encourage, this is the path I took. I tell them, go to college, get your degree, study, because the person you are when you go into college is not the person that you are when you come out. You get exposed to different things. You meet different people. You're exposed to different ways of thinking. And the other thing is, I would tell them is to, if let's say if you aspire to be a writer, for example, I tell them, write every day. Same thing for painting. Paint every day, because it's a building process. You get better and better and better. All the mistakes that you make, they're building blocks that eventually get you to where you want to go. And the other thing that I tell them is, if you have an idea that you think is good, if you think, I have an idea for a story or I have an idea for a painting, if somebody tells you, you know what, that's not a good idea, you don't have to take them at their word that they're right. A lot of people had great ideas that a lot of people were told them, no, your idea is no good. But they turned around and they proved them wrong. When I talk to children, when I do school visits, I give them this example. I tell them a long time ago, two guys, still very young, had an idea, and they thought their idea was great, and they thought it was the greatest idea ever. And then for 5 years they tried to get their idea published, and nobody wanted it. Nobody would touch it. They told them their idea was dumb, that their idea was silly, that nobody was going to want to read their stories or look at the drawings, because one was a writer, the other was an illustrator. And then what happened is, after 5 years of being rejected, they got their idea published, and they proved everybody wrong. They proved everybody that the idea they had was not dumb. The idea that there was a planet far away from ours where a scientist discovered that the world they were living on was going to explode, but nobody believed him. So he built a rocket ship and sent his son, who was a baby, to a planet called Earth, where he was found by an elderly couple, and they raised him as if he was their own son. And then when he grew older, they discovered he could do things that nobody else could do. He was faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. He could leap over tall buildings. And then people laughed when they said that their hero was going to wear blue tights and red underwear on top of the tights, almost like a luchador. And he was going to have the letter S on his chest, wear a cape, and they were going to call him Superman. And for years, for 5 years, nobody thought that was a good idea. But then they proved everybody wrong. And what happened? They created something that inspired other people to create their own superheroes. So if you have an idea that you think is good, you don't give up on it just because somebody tells you that it's not. Doesn't mean that they're right. You could be right. As I said, I paint and I write about what I experienced growing up. And one of the things that I experienced growing up along the border was lucha libre, Mexican wrestling. And to me, people ask me, well, why lucha libre? And I tell them, well, think about it. Lucha libre, they're like a big part of the Mexican-American experience growing up along the border. And they say, well, why why would people love luchadores? So I tell them, look at them. Especially if you're a child, they wear the capes. They wear the tights. They wear the masks. They're like superheroes and supervillains come to life. And to the kid, they're bigger. They're huge. They're larger than life. And when they wear that mask, they are no longer Jose Lopez. They're no longer, Filemon Ortega. They become the living embodiment of this character that they are playing. And it's a form of, and it's a mixture of theater. It's a mixture of art. And of course there's a lot of athletics involved in it. And to me, I tell them it's a poor man's theater. It's el teatro de los pobres. A person that's struggling to feed their family, they can't afford to pay, $200 to take their family to see fine theater, they say. But for the price of a few pesos, they can take their family to see a show. And there's antagonists, and they're protagonists, and they're cast in leading and supporting roles. And they're basically playing out the oldest play in the world. It's good versus evil. Evil is winning, and then somehow good manages to triumph in the end. And so that's a big problem. I did a painting called El Santo. And what it is, actually it's now owned by UTSA. It's part of their permanent collection. And he has a picture of El Santo, and he's like staring out at the people. And to me, that was like the cool thing about it. There's this whole sense of mystery. Who is he? You see the mask, you see the character, you've seen him in movies, you've seen all these, all these things about him. But what you don't know is who he is. There's that whole superhero concept of the mystery of, the craziness that you could be at HEB buying a gallon of milk, and the person standing next to you could be this great masked luchador, but you would never even know it because you don't see them without their masks. And that's also the allure of that. They go off and they are this bigger than life persona, but then when the show is over, they take off the mask and they can walk out among the people and nobody knows who they are. And that painting, El Santo, led to another painting called The Return of Quetzalcoatl. And what I did is I grew up, with hearing, I remember seeing on television and reading books that they said, the pyramids and the Aztec temples and the Mayan pyramids, they were all done by aliens, which of course they weren't. They were done by people. But I thought it was such a cool concept that what if that was true? And I said, what if I took the image of, say, Quetzalcoatl, and I took the luchador image, because there's the outfits that were worn by the high priest and by the emperors. There was a lot of theatrics involved in it, and I made it look like a spacesuit, and it's got Quetzalcoatl, and I'll put him riding on top of a rocket ship that has the head of the feathered serpent at the front, and he's like, it's coming down, like he's returning, called The Return of Quetzalcoatl, and he's wearing the spacesuit, he's got the feathers, and he's got a luchador mask that has a lot of the features like Quetzalcoatl. So I just thought it'd be a neat combination. So I do that a lot. I combine lucha libre with politics, with history, with culture, and because basically in a way that's what the luchador is. The luchador is this the defender of the people, the whole incognita. They become bigger than just a person. They become a symbol.